Hi, my name's Al Cooper. I'm a guitar player from the UK. I've got a YouTube account called Bad Motivator. I've got an Instagram account called Bad Motivator. I play guitar, I fix guitars, I mod guitars, I mod amps, and I review pedals, and I review guitars, and I review amps. So if you're interested in any of that nerdy stuff, then you can find me at those places. Bad Motivator. But more to the point, I'm a massive Darkness fanboy. I've been asked by Dan Ling Forever to give some thoughts on the latest Darkness album. So here I go with some. So the Darkness latest album is called Easter is Cancelled, and it's kind of a continuation from Pinewood Smile in my opinion. So before Pinewood Smile we had Last of Our Kind. Now to me that was a pretty heavy Darkness album. There was a lot of synths on that album. There was a lot of just heavy full-on rock down the centre, Les Paul guitars, just big balls, big riffs, lots of synths. I heard some Queen influences in there. I know you're going to say it's obvious, but no, seriously, in instrumentation, in some of the parts, it felt very Queenish, the way the songs were written. Other parts really had a Rob Zombie vibe, especially like Roaring Waters. I felt there was a bit of a Rob Zombie thing going on there with the galloping and then stop. And so from that, we got a Pinewood Smile in 2017. That felt a bit more, laid back in a way. I felt there was less gain on the guitars. There was more acoustic on there. The songs were a bit poppier, a bit less, maybe a bit less riffy, but a bit more well-rounded as songs. That's not a diss. I really like Last of Our Kind. So from that we continue on to Easter is Cancelled. Now to me, Easter is Cancelled is a bit of a continuation because you've got even more acoustic guitars going on. It's not acoustic songs, it's full-on, full band songs when you've got some acoustic guitar kind of mixed in to give some extra texture to the guitar parts. You can definitely hear it, you can feel the strums on some of the rhythm parts. Again, it's just giving some texture to the songs. They've got some mandolin on the songs. Actually, the mandolin they've been using on this album and their previous albums, they're auctioning off or raffling off. So if you're a VIP member of their website, then you're entered into a raffle and you could possibly win that instrument. So I think that's pretty cool. They've also got some Epiphone Casino on this album, which is a big sort of hollow body guitar. Hang on. This is entirely the wrong guitar, but it gives you more of an idea. It looks a little bit more like this. It's not like this, but a bit like this. It's a big hollow body. It's this semi-hollow, but it's a full hollow body they're using. And again, it's more jangly, and it just adds some extra texture. Dan's main sound on the album is his #1 Les Paul June, which is a 2000 Les Paul standard. So he's using his #1 Les Paul through a Marshall. It's either a 1987, I think they said, or they used a Friedman amp, which is kind of like a modded Marshall by Friedman amps. They're really cool amps on some of the tracks. And Justin very largely uses, again, a Marshall, or he uses a Vox AC30 with the hollow body guitar. So that's more jangly, and it's kind of like a lot of bass and a lot of treble, and you've got sort of the Les Paul, which is more mid-focus, kind of coming up the centre. Justin uses his Les Paul Customs for the solos on the album as well, as he's off to do, but I don't think he used a Rat on this. I know that both Dan and Justin, Dan used a Ibanez TS9, here, Ibanez TS9 in the front of his Marshalls to kind of boost his rhythm sound. So it takes away some of the bass and it boosts some of the mids. And Justin used a TS808, which is a slightly different Tube Screamer pedal, to boost his guitars for his rhythm parts and some of the lead parts. And also on the Epiphone Casino through a Vox AC30, they also used a Tube Screamer on that. I'm not sure if it's an 808 or a 9, but they used some sort of Tube Screamer for some of the parts on that, for some of the gainy parts, but a lot of it was pretty much clean with the hollow body. Again, it just adds a different texture, a different flavour, and it's like eating a piece of food. You do notice the different spices and that interacting, and it builds a bigger picture of the flavour of the band, the song. This album, Heart Explodes, is a proper right-on rock song about touring and touring and touring and touring until you drop dead, and just how much you love touring. And it's a bit of a cheesy topic maybe, but I think they do it justice, as they always do. The Darkness are a bit tongue-in-cheek. They don't take themselves too seriously, but they do take their music seriously, and musically it's top-notch, as it always is. Heart Explodes is kind of a Thin Lizzy kind of thing with the dual guitar solos. They don't do it all over this album. It's not every song, but the songs they do it, it always works really well, and in my opinion, they do it very tastefully. Again, you've got the different sounds of Dan and Justin that kind of, even when they're both on Les Pauls through Marshalls or similar, there is a differentiation there. I believe Dan's panned hard left and Justin's hard right. So that again gives a sense of space and makes everything sound kind of bigger, rather than everything being in the middle where sometimes things can be a bit on top of each other. So Deck Chair is an interesting song. It's about when the brothers went fishing with their granddad and a deck chair fell into the water. They use it as a metaphor for a failed relationship. Again, it's a strange thing to link to it, but they don't take themselves too seriously, and they clearly have a hell of a lot of fun writing these songs, because if you listen to the lyrics, there's kind of some, I'm not going to say Morrissey-esque, but there's a tongue-in-cheekness that Morrissey does, and in a very different way. You can listen to the Darkness lyrics and you'll still be smirking and chuckling along, because they really have a sense of humour. They know what they're about, they know what they do, and they're just having a great bloody time doing it. I also really like the song Heavy Metal Lover. That has some really fast sections and some really kind of slower, almost ballady sections about you dating a heavy metal chick and you really like her denim and you like her ink, and fair enough, you know, good for you. I think that song's really interesting as well, because it has some fast sections and slow sections, and Dan does some weird kind of heavy metal-esque riffage. It's not real heavy metal, they're not actually going for a heavy metal sound. With the gear they had in the studio, they could have gone for a silly scooped over the top metal sound to really take the piss, but they really haven't. It's a harder edged version of what they normally do, and Dan plays single string, kind of single note stuff for the heavy riffs. So it sets it apart. It doesn't sound like a heavy metal song, it sounds like an ode to a heavy metal song. So this album, I think, is a bit more, I'm not going to say mainstream because that's kind of a dirty word, but it is a bit more polished than their previous albums. I really, really like the production on this. I think especially the drums sound great. Rufus has done an amazing job on drums. He's absolutely slotted into this band like no one else. You can really tell it's him. He doesn't sound like Ed. He doesn't sound like Emily Dolan Davis, who played on Last of Our Kind. It's more like Pinewood Smile, but I think he's a bit more comfortable now because he's absolutely hammering it on the drums. I'm a really big fan of the production on this album. Everything sounds so clean, so polished. You can hear absolutely everything. The bass is quite subby. There's not a lot of high end or twang in the bass, but you can still absolutely hear it. If you want to listen for the bass, you can absolutely hear it. And the same for either guitar or the acoustic guitar or the mandolin or the odd synth here and there, and the drums. Nothing is sitting in anything else's space. Everything sort of has room to breathe. It feels very airy, and I think the acoustic guitars do kind of add to that. It kind of feels like you're sitting in a field a little bit. So those are my thoughts on the album. Thanks for listening, I suppose. If you want to find out what I do, you can check out my channel at Bad Motivator, or on Instagram at The Bad Motivator. Buy the album.